So, what's up, guys? Today we're gonna talk about a special case, um, something that happened in the 80s in Eastern Germany. Because, as you know, East Germany used to be a communist state, a communist dictatorship, in fact. Alongside China, probably the only communist dictatorship that didn't really have that much issues. It was actually better than that what came after for East Germans. Um, so there was this case about a political prisoner during that time. I don't know the names or anything. I forgot them. But so this political prisoner was a pregnant mother basically, and she just got arrested, and 9 months later she bore a child. Right now, the child is one of a political prisoner, so nobody really would miss it. So they put this baby basically in an early virtual reality device because they wanted to um, test out what would happen to someone if they were raised entirely in VR. So they put them in this virtual reality device. They sedated them at night when it was supposed to sleep, and when that was the time they cleaned the baby. Um, and was it in the 80s or was it in the 70s? Probably rather in the 70s because well, this baby only really had access to this virtual reality, right? And it was basically an um, early desktop. Actually, that's probably the invention of the mouse, because that's by a predecessor of a mouse. This baby was able to interact with this virtual reality world, and it literally only saw the screen before it and the cursor on it and the different like apps and all like that um, he could interact with. And yeah, they I don't really know what they intended to test with that experiment, but they did it. It's actually something only really East Germans know, because it was kind of covered up, because after the reunification, a lot of people were given amnesty, so the reunification could go on, and this included these scientists. And during reunification, this baby wasn't a baby anymore. He was like in his early 20s, and he was finally disconnected. And even after it, it was basically completely a vegetable. They he was basically a vegetable, so he only really interacted. He learned basic functions slowly, but he couldn't go to the toilet. He couldn't eat properly. He hasn't technically eaten in his entire life before, right? So he when he was asked to draw himself, to do a self-portrait, he drew the cursor that he saw in the virtual reality world, right? So he identified totally with that cursor, because that was the part of him that interacted with his virtual reality world. And he killed himself later. He jumped out of a window in one of the apartments they gave him, because they were kind of embarrassed about the whole situation. So they tried to um, give him a normal life on welfare, basically, and also a lot of money so that he wouldn't go to the public about it. But he later killed himself. He jumped out of the window. This was obviously a horrible experiment, and luckily I made it up, right? But the point still stands. If you are completely raised in this, and this is like a modern version of Plato's cave theory, Plato's cave allegory, where if you were completely raised in a virtual reality world where you only interacted through such a cursor with like a desktop PC, you would identify with that cursor. You wouldn't identify with your real body because you didn't see your real body. You didn't do anything with your real body. Your identity was entirely focused on this cursor. And this is actually basically how the real world works, right? Because you yourself, you are not your body. You think you are your body because you interact with the world around you through your body. But you yourself aren't your body. You are your soul. Your body is something you control. You are the soul. You control your body like a mecha, basically. It isn't necessarily you. And you can test this actually. If you internalize this idea that you are not your body, that you are separate from it, that you have mastery over it, that you have power over it, then you can do crazy things. Like you can be drunk, but you can still act rationally because you have a separate oversoul, separate overmind that isn't affected by alcohol, because only your body is affected by alcohol. Only your brain thoughts are affected by alcohol, not yourself, not your own thoughts. And this is something I actually believe in, is a two minds theory, basically, which is the notion that a soul has like an eidetic memory and own thoughts, but you're actually a personality isn't necessarily inside your soul. Your personality, your carnal, biological thoughts, your emotions are part of your body, right? They occur in your brain. Your consciousness does not. Nowhere in your brain is consciousness. You can't find it in there. Scientists will try and try and try, and they can't find it in the brain because that's not where it is. It's not actually inside matter at all. Consciousness is a metaphysical thing, not a physical thing. Consciousness is you controlling this material body, which, like all matter, is like a surface. It's like so I think the universe is actually somewhat structured like do you know these glass balls which have electricity inside them, and there's these tentacles of static electricity flowing outside. At the surface, that's what matter is. Matter is a hologram. It's a projection of the metaphysical. Like Plato, basically, Neoplatonism heavily influenced me. And there's the idea of the concept of forms. Like, for example, the concept of chair, right? Every chair looks different. Chairs often aren't really recognizable to each other, but they are all chairs, and there is one archetypal concept of chair, a platonic form of chair somewhere in the platonic realm, encoded inside this matrix, the original term of a matrix, not a simulation, a matrix. In this matrix of information, which contains all consciousness, all information, all the mathematics and the source code of reality, it's all holographically projected outwards onto the surface, which is matter. And matter itself, like, for example, a good idea is the morphological field theory, right? So the morphological field theory says that living beings have something called a morphological field, which is a form of energy field which controls how your body grows. Without such a field, you'd just be a cancerous blob of completely unhinged cells which multiply without any restriction. And this morphological field is basically a form of platonic form of you. Your soul is this morphological field. You look like your soul, basically. Your soul is the part of you that is inside this information matrix. And your soul is projected outwards, like all information inside this matrix, into the material realm, and this is why you look like you do. And anyways, there's a bit more complexity to this. Like, I think the original prime, this prime instance, this prime principle from which everything else inside this informational matrix descends or emanates is, in my opinion, God. And his first three emanations are being, time, and consciousness, which in Christian terms would be analogous to the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, right? And under this, there are lower emanations, which would probably be represent like eons or basic fundamental principles or pagan deities. And consciousness, human consciousness itself, souls, which we would call them, are somewhere far below that. We can rise higher, but things like personality, will to power, will to live, instinct, these are closer related to matter, actually. And the Gnostics, for example, they would say we should abandon all our human parts, our personality, our desires, and not just the Gnostics, but also the Buddhists, in order to come closer to God, to the primal principle. I don't think that's necessarily a good idea, because I don't know, I like existing. And the closer you come to God, the more you merge with God, and the more you lose yourself. Personality, self, that's something that's somewhere below, somewhere between an angel and matter. That's what we humans are. We are between an angel and an animal, right? And I'm perfectly fine with being that. I don't really want to ascend higher. I don't want to lose myself. I like being, and I think a lot of people like being. So I prefer staying in the cycle of reincarnation and just being myself. Maybe I'm different people in different lives. That's okay. Um, Actually, I would prefer that. I want to explore everything sometime. Um, I don't know. I don't know if I want to be another species. I like being a human. I think that's kind of like the golden mean between like an animal and like a deity. Yeah.